My name is Paul Julian, and I'm here with my coworker Bill Wilkening, and we're today's date is September 30th of 2021, and we're here working or going to interview a Truett Smith, and we're at his son's home where Truett's staying, and we're here to do an interview of what we consider a hero. So with that being said, let's get started. Truett, you said you were born in Newton, Alabama.
Correct.
And that was 1922.
It's July 27th, 1922.
Okay. And Truett, your parents, did both of them work for a living or no?
Initially farming,
Farming.
but my dad was a part-time preacher, and he became a full-time preacher after about 15 years.
Okay.
And he preached at the First Baptist Church in Crestview, Florida.
Crestview.
You might have heard of Crestview.
No, I have.
That's right near Eglin.
Right along I-10. As you go I-10 west, right along I-10. Right along Interstate 10 as you go west. I've seen those signs.
That's where I was born, not born and raised, that's where I was raised.
Were you raised in Crestview?
No, well, 17 miles north of Crestview.
Okay, Newton. Yeah. And Truett, your mom was always a homemaker?
What?
Your mom was always a homemaker. She always was a homemaker?
Yes, right,
Okay.
she never worked.
Well,
She worked, but not
full time.
Not a paying job.
Okay. And did you have any brothers and sisters?
Yes, the brother I just told you about, and my sister is a nurse, and now she's married to a full-time 14-year full-time master sergeant from the Air Force, and he has put in his full-time.
Oh wow! Oh wow!
But they're in Texas. They live in Texas, in the big, most rich oil part of Texas.
Oh, okay.
And he's got a big-time job with the oil company since he retired as a master sergeant.
Oh, okay.
They are the skilled people of the Air Force and of any service.
Yes, sir.
And they're always in demand, master sergeants.
Yes, sir. And digressing back to your brother. Your brother was served in the Air Force.
He's 97, and he spent his full time in the Air Force.
In the Air Force, okay.
No, he started in the Navy, and he transferred to the Air Force for some reason. I don't know what it was.
What was your parents and your brother and sister's feelings about you joining the service?
About me joining the service?
Yeah, did they have any feelings about it?
No objections at all.
No objections? Okay. I'm sure they were quite proud, right? Quite proud of what you did.
Yeah.
And did you, for your, through grade school and high school, you were, did you have a grade school and high school in Crestview, or did you have it in Newton?
I never lived in Newton. I was born there when my dad was going to college there.
Oh, okay.
I lived at Laurel Hill, Florida.
Laurel Hill?
Which is about 17 miles north of Crestview.
Okay. Okay.
And that's just a crossroads.
Okay. And did you, and you went into the service, Truett, right after high school?
Right.
Okay. And did you hold any jobs before service?
No.
No. Okay.
Other than summertime jobs in the farming area we
Yes, sir.
lived in.
Yes, sir. Can you tell us about you know when you went in the military, did you, why did you join?
I need to tell you a little bit more
Sure.
before I just jump
That's
into
fine,
that.
that's fine.
When I was 10 years old, I started delivering Time magazine. You've probably heard of Time magazine. And I didn't even realize it was printed then, but that's what I'm told. I feel like I was about 10 years old. Anyway, and I read that before I delivered it. I only had 7 customers, such a small town, so I read them before I delivered them. And even at 10 years old, I realized that we were going to go into war, and I wanted to be trained. Why go in and get killed if you can go in and be trained? So I knew I was getting some of the training because I was a hunter, and I was a good shot. And in fact, when I went in the Marine Corps, I went to Paris Island, if you've probably heard of Paris
Yes, sir.
Island, to train. And I won, I made expert rifle. Not many people make that. I got a medal for that. Where did I stop?
So you got in and you got trained. In training, you got in the marksmanship. You got a expert marksmanship medal. Now you're in your training. When you were training, your basic training at Paris Island.
I was trained at Paris Island.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
And
And then the top people in the country, I don't know how high up, but they had decided that our division, you might have heard of the O breed.
the O breed.
That was a book written about Guadalcanal, and it was called the O breed.
The old breed.
The O breed,
Okay.
because a lot of the people had been in the Marine Corps their entire life. And then they brought in a few people like me to fill out people that had died or retired or whatever. And so it was a bunch of old, and so the higher ups decided our division of 20,000 would be the ones that started to turn the Japanese around at Guadalcanal. We would turn them around. They were planning to go to Melbourne and to New Zealand next. And so they made a big effort to turn them around there. That was the very first offensive battle that we had in World War II, was Guadalcanal. We had been on defensive totally ever since then.
Oh, up until that point, all on defense.
Right. And we had lost every island between Japan and Guadalcanal in that time. And they decided that we would be the ones they picked to turn them around at Guadalcanal, because a lot of our people had already been trained, had been in for some of them for their whole career. And
So that was the line in the sand. That was the line in the sand.
yeah, Guadalcanal. And so after we trained at Paris Island, we trained there a while, and then they sent us to Guadalcanal. We used to call it Gitmo.
Oh yeah, Cuba. That's amazing back then. All the way back then, Gitmo. Wow.
What's the real name of it?
Guantanamo Bay.
Guantanamo Bay.
Yeah.
They sent us to Guantanamo Bay to train. And we stayed down there for 6 months, training very, very hard, very in
6
the
months.
jungle, in the cactus and everything.
Do you recall, Truett, about what year that took place?
What's that?
Do you recall, was it in 42, 43?
That was in, it would have been in,
You know, Pearl Harbor was December of 41.
well, it was long before Pearl Harbor.
Oh, it was before that.
Oh, yeah, long before that.
Okay. So you basically, the service was figuring that they were going to get in it. They figured that America was going to get into it. They just didn't know when.
Yes, that's the reason I went in,
Okay.
because of reading Time magazine at a very young age, and hearing how much the war was going to, you know, that it was going to happen.
Yeah.
And I decided a few years later, because I didn't go until I was 18,
Yeah.
that I would go in, and I wanted to go in the Navy.
Mm-hmm.
But the Navy, for some reason, thought I was too skinny. And so the Marine Corps sent me down to eat some bananas, and they weighed me again, and they say, "You make it now, Marine Corps." So they put me in the Marine Corps. And I went to Pensacola, and from Pensacola they sent me to Parris Island, South Carolina,
Mm-hmm.
for training.
Okay.
And we did not have the big base at Camp Lejeune.
Mm-hmm.
It had not been built even. And we trained at Parris Island
Mm-hmm.
and Guantanamo Bay. And while we were overseas, we went to Australia, New Zealand first.
Mm-hmm.
They were building the big
base?
Marine base at Camp Lejeune. They were building Camp Lejeune.
While you were over in New Zealand.
Well, we were in New Zealand and on Guadalcanal.
Mm-hmm.
And so from New Zealand, our group went to Fiji Islands
Mm-hmm.
for further training
Mm-hmm.
and to try to throw the Japanese off on what we were going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that was not my plan, of course.
Yeah.
That was probably went all the way up to the president.
Yes.
That was the most important thing
Yes.
they had ever done, was to try to stop the Japanese from taking Australia and New Zealand.
And that was, in Truett, that was probably like 42, 43.
No, that was in,
Remember, Pearl Harbor happened in 41, late 41, so it was like probably 42, 43.
no, I'd been in a long time when Pearl Harbor happened.
Yeah.
I can't remember the dates unless I had my records.
Okay. Well, it wasn't that you go into New Zealand, Truett, and then later and Fiji for training. It wasn't that. It wasn't that long after Pearl Harbor, right?
No, I hadn't been trained before Pearl Harbor.
Okay.
But I was in, they had then built Camp Lejeune,
Yeah.
but they didn't have any 8-man tents.
Okay.
And they brought us back from Guantanamo Bay and took us to Camp Lejeune and put us in 8-man tents
Oh wow.
until they finished building the barracks
Oh, okay.
at Camp Virginia.
Okay.
Camp Virginia.
Okay.
And while I was there in an 8-man tent, somebody came running down the street, said they just struck Pearl Harbor. And that's when it happened. And I can't remember, well, you know when Pearl Harbor
Yeah,
happened.
December
I
7th.
can't remember.
December 7th, 1941.
I remember the event very clearly,
Yes, sir.
but I can't remember the dates.
So you'd been in some time then before that happened, yeah.
Because I knew when Pearl Harbor happened that I was going to a fighting war.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And Truett, why did you, is there any particular reason you chose the Marines?
Because I couldn't get in the Navy.
Can you get in the Navy? Okay.
I thought the Navy would be safer than Army and Marines. And that would have been correct. The Navy did end up losing a lot of men,
But not as
but
much.
not as many as the other two
Yes, sir.
services.
Yes, sir. And the training that you had, was it basically, besides, you know, your basic training, did you train a lot in the jungle then after, you know, after Pearl Harbor? The training you had to get over, when you went to New Zealand and Fiji Islands, did they put you there because they were training you how to fight in the jungle, right?
Yeah.
Okay, okay. And do you have any vivid memory of your time that you were training during that time? Any vivid memories?
Only in winning the highest award for marksmanship.
Oh, okay. And what was the worst part of the training? Is just very
The mountains around Guantanamo Bay, training in the heat
oh wow.
and the cactus.
And the cactus.
You didn't dare get into a cactus.
Do you you see you qualified in being expert
Expert rifleman.
rifleman? Did you have any other qualifications? Any other on weapons or any, you know?
Yeah, after I got at some point, back into the regular part, out of training and back into the real service.
Yeah.
I was a machine gunner, but I don't know when that happened.
Oh, okay.
And I was a squad leader of a 13-man squad
Oh, okay.
of machine gunners.
Oh, that's.
And our squad had a 30 caliber water-cooled machine gun and a 30 caliber air-cooled machine gun and Browning automatic rifle.
Oh wow.
And I had a Tommy gun and a .45 pistol because I was a leader. And the rest of them had '03 rifles that were made in '03 and used in World War I.
Well, that's fascinating.
And they came out just about the time we finished with a better rifle for us.
What was Truett, what was as far as going back to when you go through basic training, what was the hardest part of the military lifestyle for you to adapt to? What was the hardest part of making that transition from civilian to Marine? What was the...
It was not hard for me.
Not hard? Okay. And
I'd been a farm boy all my life.
so you had
Up
to
until
work.
then.
So you were
I was used to a hard life.
Yes, sir. Was there anything easy about it, Truett? Anything easy about going from civilian to Marine? Anything easy?
No, the whole experience was easy to me because I wanted to do it.
Okay. Thank you, sir. So you, so if I got this right, the recap, you went from basic training in Parris Island, then were you immediately sent to Guantanamo Bay?
It wasn't immediately. I don't remember exactly how long it was. It wasn't very long.
And then after that, the next place you went, sir, was Fiji Islands?
We went on the largest ship America had at the time.
Is it an amphibious ship?
That was a civilian liner that they had taken that was large enough to carry our full division of 20,000 Marines.
Wow.
And all of our equipment.
Wow.
And the reason they did that, they wanted to sneak us into
New
New Zealand without the Japanese knowing that
Yes,
we
sir.
were doing it.
Yes, sir.
And they sent us on one ship that zigzagged all the way from
Oh, wow.
Norfolk down through the Guadalcanal, through the canal, and to New Zealand.
Wow.
With our next landing, it took
Wow.
us a month because we zigzagged so much, so the Japanese wouldn't detect what we were up to.
That's, and then, so you, sir, then you went from New Zealand into Fiji Islands, get some combat training, and knowing that you're going to have to defend, you're going to draw the line in the sand about letting the Japanese come, get them away from the islands, right? You were gonna.
I wasn't high enough to know why. I just know we went there.
Okay.
Now, as I look back, that was probably part of what they were doing.
Yes, sir.
Because I was a civil engineer in college. I went to George Washington University in Washington, D.C.
Was that before the service?
What?
That was after the service, right?
After the
Okay,
service.
Okay. And but basically your job in the Marines, Truett, was like you were an expert rifleman, and that's what they.
No, I was a machine gun squad leader.
Machine gun squad leader. Okay, so you basically were supervising.
Yes.
Okay, okay. And now it's going back to the, time and place when Fiji Islands. How long did you train there?
Only a few months.
A few months, just a couple months.
We were just maybe marking time
Yeah.
for things to get right for the whole operation. I don't know what it was.
Okay. And then from Fiji, then eventually you heard word that the
From
time was to go.
Fiji's, we went back to New Zealand.
New Zealand. Okay.
And we stayed there quite a while. We were in a sheep farm. New Zealand have a lot of sheep, And they had taken over a huge sheep farm because they were so glad to see the Marines there. New Zealand knew they'd be next.
Yes, sir.
And they, when that ship pulled up, and they had been no word, they didn't word to get to anybody. That huge ship pulled in there with 20,000 Marines. That was a happy bunch of New Zealanders.
So were you there for quite some time?
No, we were.
Before you got the call? Before you got the orders?
I'm trying to think how long it was.
A couple weeks, few
It
weeks.
was more than that. It was probably. I'm just guessing. I've lost track of the time back then. It was at least probably 6 months.
6 months. I guess you guys you were treated pretty well by the New Zealanders, weren't you?
Absolutely. Particularly the women.
So when you got the call, when you went directly, sir, there to go into the mission of Guadalcanal, right? When you got into your objective, right?
But I'd like to tell you about our landing on Guadalcanal, if I could.
Well, you could tell me that all day and all night.
I have a feeling, and I've read later, that in our armada that went into Guadalcanal carrying troops, but mostly warships, smaller warships. They didn't want to have any big ones that might give our way. there was something like 50 ships in that group that landed on Guadalcanal. And we had any number of warships that shelled Guadalcanal on the beach where we landed. And there was just an amazing bombardment of Guadalcanal when we, before we landed there. It lasted about 4 or 5 hours. And then we went ashore in Higgins boats. You've probably heard of Higgins
yes, sir.
boats.
They have one in museum in New Orleans.
First landing boats we had, the Higgins boats. And we went down a rope ladder, if you've heard of rope ladders.
Yes, sir.
Our troop ships, we unloaded from rope ladders down into the Higgins
Which means,
boats.
so you didn't unload, sir, Truett, you didn't unload off an amphibious ship, it was a regular ship?
What's that?
You weren't on an amphibious ship, were you? In other words, they didn't have ships to where you can, the bow or the stern would open up?
They had them, but I wasn't on those types.
Okay, I'm sorry, sir.
They had a few of them, they didn't have a lot of them.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Uh,
If you continue, I'd highly appreciate it, yeah.
yeah,
So you come down the ropes into the boats, huh?
into the boat, and then we had to go as far as the Higgins boats would go before they went aground, because they were in fairly shallow water, and then the front dropped down, and we then waded the rest of the way to the shore, not knowing what we were going to hit. The Marine intelligence thought we were going to run into a bunch of Japanese on the, and the Japs, for some reason, they must have got that word, had moved to a different area, and there weren't anybody on Guadalcanal. I mean, at that beach.
Nobody to greet you.
No.
Nobody to confront you.
So we bombarded and made all that effort for nothing, because they had become aware that we planned to land there and had moved to a different beach. So we had a good safe landing. That's about the last safe day we had there.
Well, Truett, then just give me a little idea. Was Guadalcanal a large island?
No, not it. The ship, the area we landed in, was a coconut grove built by the Colgate Palmolive Company. Had used the coconuts to use their Colgate
Soap and other
stuff that they built back in
Toiletries,
those days.
yeah.
They probably still make it.
Yes, sir.
There was quite a large island, quite a large
Grove.
farm of coconut trees.
Yeah.
Nothing but coconut trees. And the Colgate Palmolive Company had natives running them and collecting the coconuts for them and things like that. And of course, when we landed there, that was the end of it.
And then, so it goes without asking, Truett, that it was a flat part of the island. There was a mountain. There was some mountains on it, right, or a mountain.
Small mountains.
Small mountains.
The tallest mountain I was on was about 400 feet high. And on that mountain, I lost one of my men. He got totally killed with a grenade. And
Did it?
Now, kind of just lost where I'm at.
Take your time. So we were talking about you landed you landed on the flatter part of the island, and then you proceeded to go find the Japanese, right? And at some point you had to go over some mountains. You had to go.
No, we were went along pretty much along the beach.
Did the beach?
Or close to the beach.
Yes.
And if you've heard of the Japanese had been there long enough to build an airport, and it was called Henderson Field. Was the best I can remember was Henderson Field.
Henderson Field.
And they were flying planes out of that
Mm-hmm.
while we were there.
While you were there.
I believe it was while we were there,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe they left and then while we were first there, they made two operations that were like clockwork. They would come over at noon with their 4-engine bombers that they had back then, and there'd be about 12 or 15 in the group of 4-engine bombers and bomb with that kind of a load all over the island.
Mm-hmm.
Thank goodness we were at a point that they didn't bomb real close.
Mm-hmm.
And then at midnight they would come back and shell us. Well, they still controlled the Navy, they still controlled the sea and around Guadalcanal at that time. And but they were afraid to do anything other than to sneak in there at night and shell us.
Mm-hmm.
So for 59 nights, my group anyway, got shelled and bombed
59.
for 59 days and nights.
Then this real, did you have a place to get cover? Did you have a place to
Oh, we built foxholes, not foxholes, gun emplacements, because we were machine gunners. And we built, we dug deep holes and cut coconut trees, which were huge trees for that farm, and covered the emplacement with coconut trees. And then we filled sandbags with sand. We were on the beach and threw them on top of the coconut logs. So we had a pretty good safe build.
what it was, true of more than anything else, you were hiding. You built camouflage, you were hiding, right?
No, we were protecting ourselves when they came, because they were out right ahead of us there, and they would come in sometimes real close and try to sneak in, and we'd open up our machine gun and they'd back off. One time we saw them coming in, their leader was riding a white horse, and the Japs did that, you know, if you ever read about them.
They did riding a white horse?
Yes. And another thing that they did, that while I'm thinking about it, I'll tell you, a lot of their higher-ups had samurai swords. You've heard of samurai swords?
Yes, sir.
You could shave with one. That's how sharp they were. And
What did you say, Truett? What did you say about the samurai sword?
they were so sharp you could shave with them.
Ah, okay.
And they claimed that. I never shaved with one.
Yeah. So they
now my gun emplacement, because I was one of the older ones, I'd been in longer than some of them, was that I was right on the beach. I was we were no more than 100 feet from
the beach.
The waves weren't very high because that was an island there, and there were 4 or 5 islands around there. And so we were the one that was then it took off inland and went over that hill I'm talking about. And
talking about from where you were at, as you go inland, you go over a hill.
Inland from where I was initially. Go over that 400-foot hill. They told me, I never measured it.
Yeah.
But they said it was 400 feet high. And
And where is that where the Japanese were?
The Japs were back up the island. They were on the beach, a lot farther up than we were. I'll tell you later,
Okay.
if I have time,
Okay.
about some of the final days in Guadalcanal.
Okay.
Uh,
So you were there for a total of 59 days?
no, I was there a little over 6 months.
Over 6 months. Okay. So did the fighting take place over the 59 days? Is that what?
The fighting was pretty much over the whole time.
Over the 6 months. Yeah.
I did some hand-to-hand combat. Not many people have done that.
Hand-to-hand combat.
I was pretty strong and pretty big. I'm 6'2" and I weighed about 230 pounds at that time, and had a lot of training. And I had one. Well, first we were having a battle with machine guns and small
arms.
well, I can't think of it, mortars.
Mortars.
And we chased them back about 3 or 4 miles, and we got close enough to them that they started to laying mortars down on it, but not any small arms or machine guns.
Just mortars.
Just mortars at that time. And one of the mortars hit my machine gunner. It didn't hit him, it landed a few feet back of him.
Yes.
And tore his back up. And I never saw him again, and I don't know whether he lived or died. We left him, we just kept going.
You kept moving.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was our plan. We never stopped to help anybody. We had medics that would come along behind us and pick up the dead and the injured, and we kept going.
And then, Truett, was that just one of many battles you had? I mean, did you just keep going? Did you
Well,
at one point stop and then?
I'll tell you the rest of that if you want to hear it.
Okay. That's a hand-to-hand. What was a hand-to-hand?
That was after we had got up to the point that there was a huge log like they have in that area, about 4 or 5 feet in diameter.
Oh my gosh.
And we hid on my squad, my platoon, which is 40 men, hid on the side opposite from where they were and hid behind that log. And it rained all night. And some of us tried to sleep a little bit while our sentries watched. The Japs were not fighting at that time. They were bedding down too somewhere.
Uh-huh.
And so my other gunner, I had 2 gunners, and I lay down on our poncho. You've heard of a poncho.
Yes.
And we put our other poncho over us because it was raining. Lay on one, put the other one over us. And the Japanese attacked us late in the night, and they stuck their bayonet through the stomach of my guy that was laying under the poncho with me, my other gunner. And I never saw him again. After that, I knew that I was there long enough to find out they had stuck him in the stomach. And we left him and went on. And we then that was quite a battle. That's where I had the hand-to-hand at that point. I was in hand-to-hand with the Japanese, and one of my buddies was trying to shoot him without shooting me. And I kept moving him around until I got him away from me so he could shoot him. And that's what he did. And then after we had fought there for a while, in place, we didn't leave. And the Japanese were close enough to us that they could fire at us too. We began to advance. We were strong enough that we advanced, and we got closer and closer to the center of what the Japanese were doing. And we had a final battle there. And the next day, they found that we had killed 381, the best I remember. And I don't know how many of us they killed, because there were more than my squad. There were several platoons there had come in to join us there, because that was their regimental headquarters. If you remember what a regiment is, it's about 7 men, 7,000, 7,000. And that was their regimental headquarters at that huge tree. And we were chasing them around that tree until we killed that many of them. And some of my people were killed right before me. One man was, he was only about 10 feet from me, and they shot him, hit him right in the heart, and the blood spurted out just like out of a hose, and he dropped dead. And I was pretty scared of them.
Yes, sir. That was the final battle?
That was the final battle we had, yep.
And so did you, what did you, after the final battle, did you, gather everything up and then they took you off the island, or no?
No, we stayed on the island quite a while, because there still were other naval things by then. The Japanese came at us with 10 troop ships. The best I remember was 10 troop ships all loaded with Japanese. And they landed up the beach from where my emplacement was. And our Navy was close enough that they sunk most of those 10 ships.
Wow.
And killed most of the people on them. And that was the last big battle, and that was strictly a naval operation from our Navy and their troop ships.
Truett, did they build anything after you sanitized the island? Did they build anything? Did they have to repair the airstrip to use it, or?
I don't know. I've read things about it, and obviously it's got some population.
Yeah.
But I don't know the details of that.
Okay. So, did you, was it less hectic after that final battle?
Was what?
Was it less stressful, or were you less fearful after that final battle?
It was certainly less stressful. Really.
Yeah. And then, did you get any time to, like, catch some sleep, or did you?
Yeah, I got some sleep.
Got caught up on your sleep. Was there anything? This is fascinating to us, Truett. Was there anything else having to do with your brave service on Guadalcanal you wanted to tell us? Any other recollections or reflections that you wanted to tell us?
Oh, we had several people killed and wounded, and I didn't have but 13 men, and I didn't lose too many. Of because I didn't have that many.
Yeah.
I had up to 40 at a time. I was acting, but that was probably, it was after most of the main battles was over. We stayed there quite a while. I don't remember how long after that battle, before they came in with the ships to haul us either to, well, we went to Australia, Melbourne, Australia,
Uh-huh.
and they had built us a camp. First we went to Brisbane. They had built us a camp there, and we went there, and the mosquitoes were so bad that our important people were running the show. The general was running the whole show. They moved us, said we can't live there, and they moved us to another camp that they had started building in Melbourne. And that's where I spent the rest of my year, either in that camp. I wasn't in the hospital the whole time. I was in and out of it for a year.
Oh, okay.
With malaria, it's treated back then by going out and exercise strenuously, and it causes the bug, whatever it is, to squeeze out of your blood, and then they give you stuff that'll kill it.
I see.
And they'd put us in the hospital and give us a month or so of that. And then we'd come down with malaria again, and they'd put us back in the field and put us through high stressful exercises.
Exercises, yeah.
Kept we doing that for a year.
Wow.
In and out, in and out.
Wow.
And
They moved you from Brisbane to Melbourne, Truett, because of the mosquitoes, or that bad?
yes, they moved us. They were bad at Melbourne, but nothing like what they were at Brisbane.
Okay.
They would just cover you. They
Really?
would totally cover you.
Oh my gosh.
Why they put us there originally, I would have thought they would have checked that out more before they go to. They had built a tent camp. There wasn't a regular barrack.
Yeah.
It was just 8-man tents. But they'd set them up there, and whoever decided that really made a bad decision.
Yeah.
Because we weren't there very long before they said, we've got to get out of here.
Yes, sir. Did your experience, did your Marine experience in general and your Guadalcanal experience in particular, did that change you, Truett? Did that change the way you thought about things? Did that, as far as your life, did that?
Well, I guess not that it made any difference. It's worth talking about that I can think of anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I held some pretty big jobs since then. I've held big enough jobs that back when I retired, which was when I was 72 years old,
Uh-huh.
I worked longer than I needed to.
Yeah.
But anyway, I retired with a retirement of right at $100,000 a year.
Oh my gosh.
So you can see back then I
Yes.
held some big jobs.
Yes, sir. No.
I was once in charge of military construction in Washington, D.C.
Oh, wow.
After I was a civil engineer from George Washington University, which is within 5 blocks of the White House.
Oh my gosh! Wow,
And,
that's really something. I know Bill worked a lot of his time in D.C.
Yeah.
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Did during that time? From that war service, did you stay in touch with any friends?
What's that?
Did you make any friends over there? During your service, did you make any friends?
I made a lot of them, but most of them got killed.
Most of them got killed.
Or didn't make it back, or for some reason. I didn't see any of them after I came back.
Do you recall the day that your service ended?
No, I don't.
No.
I've got it on a discharge paper at home, but it's at Melbourne.
And how did you feel? I mean, how did you feel when you finally got out of the service?
Well, I had worked to the end of that particular thing, and the Marines were so happy to get rid of people because the war was over.
Right.
And they had, you know, there was a total in service of all service in that war of 12 million people. And they were paying the salaries for all those people.
Yeah.
And they weren't in the Marine Corps, I'm talking about Army, Navy, Air Force, and everything, 12 million.
Wow.
And that was at the height of the battles.
Mm-hmm.
And but anyway, by even the time I got out, they were glad to let you go.
They were glad.
After some of the good jobs I held, like I say, I was a prison warden at Great Lakes Naval Training Center for about a year.
That's where I went to. That's where I went to basic.
Yeah. Well, I was at Waukegan.
Waukegan, I remember that. That was a Liberty. That was a Liberty place.
Yep.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Did you?
Then I was a military policeman in downtown Washington, and I was we was part of the Navy, so there was a Navy what they call shore patrol.
Yep.
And a MP,
Yep.
which I was, and they put a shore patrol and an MP together.
Oh, okay.
And we handled down, and since he had been a DC cop before he went in, they put him downtown Washington, and I was with him, so I went downtown Washington. And we handled the nightclubs, and the nightclubs were so happy to see servicemen come in because there'd be no fights during that period. They were there. They'd see our battle, our uniform, and they'd behave themselves until we left, and then they'd start to fight.
Truett, if I could just digress this up a second. When you got out of the service, right after you got out of the service, you go home? Did you go home?
I went home,
Okay.
and I was there for a couple of months, I think. Not long at all.
Not long.
And my dad was a full-time preacher, pretty important by then. And but he had several churches. One of them didn't have any indoor toilets. They went out and it was in heavy, thick woods, and the men went this way and the women went that way. So my dad and somebody that I didn't know started down the trail and asked me to go with them. If I wanted to go, I didn't go with them because it was my dad. Then I found out the guy he was with was the Southern Baptist Florida underschool head for Florida.
Oh, wow.
And he asked me, what was I doing? And I told him, well, I wanted to go to college, but I had applied to a bunch of colleges, and I didn't even get an answer from any of them because there were so many people trying to get in college. And he said, did you apply to Stetson? I said, that's one of the first ones I applied to, and I didn't even hear from them either. He said, you'll hear from them.
Oh, very good.
And I had not got back anymore down south from Stetson till I got a letter from the head of Stetson University granting me admittance. And so I went to Stetson, and Stetson didn't have a civil engineering degree, and I wanted to be a civil engineer. So after 1 year at Stetson, I was accepted at George Washington University, and I went up there and finished my
So you did the first couple years at Stetson and then the final.
This is the first year.
Yeah, first year. Okay. Okay.
Actually, it was only 6 months, now that I think about it.
6 months. Truett, did the service affect the way you related to others? Did it affect the way you interacted with others, or no?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. Did you ever join a veterans organization?
No.
How about, did you attend any reunions?
Let me just say while you ask me that question, do you know about this big Marine outfit that's on Guadalcanal, on Merritt Island here?
A Marine detachment.
It's a place that has things that people brought back from overseas with them.
Yeah, you're talking about the Veterans Memorial Center. You talking about the Veterans Memorial Center?
For Marines?
Yeah, we're there. There's a Veterans Memorial Center that's both a museum and a library.
And where?
It's over right behind Merritt Square Mall.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's where.
That's where we from.
That's where we're from.
I lived close enough to that where they built that memorial.
Yeah.
That my cat, our cat, my daughter's cat, got caught on it. We had no doors back in those days. They could sense things, and the cat got caught under the door while we went to Orlando to buy school clothes. We came back, half of the cat was outside,
Okay.
and the other half was inside. It was dead. It was dead. And I went down and buried him under that building you're talking about.
Oh, we should write that up.
They had
we
just
should.
started it,
Yeah.
and just had
Just
started
started
the
building.
perimeter
Wow.
foundation.
That goes
Yeah.
back
Put
to.
soft dirt.
Do you remember the cat's name?
What?
You remember the cat's name?
Scooter.
Scooter. Well, there you go. We'll have to put up a big plaque. Yeah. Okay.
Scooter's buried under that building.
Would you say? We're almost done here, Truett. Would you say the military, your military service affected your life in any way?
Yes, it made it possible for me to go and get my civil engineering degree.
Okay. That was
And
a good
that
thing.
made more of a change in my life than you can imagine.
Okay.
Particularly since I got it at George Washington University.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you all know how important George Washington University is. It's considered to be above Harvard. I read not too long ago some things like that, and it was something I could believe that it was more highly rated than Harvard.
Very good.
And Truett, just a few more questions. Did you learn any life lessons, kind of life lessons from your experience in the service? Any life lessons that you took with you the rest of your life that you?
I can't think of
Like
anything.
valuing life more, or maybe teamwork, or not being as fearful of your life, losing your life, anything like that.
I can't think of anything like that. I was pretty much always that way.
Okay.
Careful of not losing my life,
Yes.
and a careful person. And
And Truett, would you say that did you, being in the thick of things, right, back in, during World War II, did it impact your feelings about war? Did it change your feelings about war when you were actually, hand-to-hand combat, looking right at the enemy, and I mean, did it change all the death that there was, and did it?
I don't think it changed it because I had always been against war. And
Always been against war.
yes, far back as I can remember anyway. Because one of the things I always read, I was a great reader. In fact, let me tell you one thing. I won first place prize in Florida on a contest they had for something, I forget what they called it, but I won first place.
For reading
Well, not for reading, it was for writing
an essay?
Forget what they called it. Something I had to write,
Uh-huh.
anyway. And it was turned in and judged, and I came back with first place.
Wow.
And so that you can see that I like to read.
So you were educated, well educated, well read.
When I went to high school, I rode a bus. We left out about an hour's drive in a school bus from the school. And our last period was in the library. And the library at that little school was not very large. But anyway, I would check out a book that I hadn't read and would read it in the bus on the way home. And that night, by the fireplace, because we didn't have electric lights at home, so I read by the fireplace. And so the next morning, I would finish it. I didn't say I finished it. I didn't finish it that night. The next morning, on the way back to school, I'd finish it. And so I read one book per day.
Oh my gosh.
Because the next day I'd do the same thing, and I finally read every book that I wanted to read in our
In the library.
small library.
Oh wow, that's impressive. Do you, as far as the service, Truett, did your feelings, did it change your feelings about the military? Do you think it was a needed thing, military, or did in looking at what we've done since then, did your feelings about the military change?
Well, it seems like they're not as efficient in killing people as we were,
Yeah.
because they'll have one or two killed and that'll make the news.
Yeah.
And we'd have 100 killed and they wouldn't even make the Guadalcanal diary. I wish I could have showed you that little newspaper that they wrote on Guadalcanal.
They actually had a newspaper published on Guadalcanal.
It was we had a few typewriters, and there was a group in their headquarters, and they were getting the news that happened, and we were not getting any news whatsoever. And we were not supposed to anybody know we was there. My dad and mother didn't even know I was there till I came home.
Wow.
And I forget where I was talking.
So you weren't getting any news on Guadalcanal. They didn't.
So they wrote the Guadalcanal diary, they called it.
Oh wow.
And it was about a 2-page thing of the news, telling us about the world, about the war that was going on.
Oh, wow.
World War II was going on. And it was Rommel in North Africa and things like that we didn't know anything about till we came home. So
Is
my brother, being a full-time 40-year guy and a master sergeant, and my son-in-law that married my daughter, who was a nurse, ended up being a master sergeant. So I thought pretty highly of the service,
did you?
and particularly of my Marine service.
Yes, sir. Is there anything else that you wanted to share with us, Truett, as far as your service, or anything related to your service?
I don't think so. I can't think of anything.
Now, when people look at this, right, the next month or next year, is there anything that you would want them to remember from your story? Anything that really, of your sacrifice and bravery, anything, that you'd like them to take from it.
At the particular time on Guadalcanal, I think it was my hand-to-hand combat that would be the most memorable part of my time. And the next most memorable was landing with all those ships and airplanes. They had every aircraft carrier we had there, all their planes flying, and every ship I think we had that would float. It was a heck of a group of ships that were there. And just pulverizing that island. They didn't want to lose us.
Yeah.
And they chased them off, and then we landed safely.
That's great. That's great. And finally, the final question, what would you wish more people knew about veterans? What would you wish most people knew or realized about the people that signed the blank check and would do things like you did?
I can't hear you too well.
What would you want more people to know about veterans? Ones that would sacrifice, that would go ahead and sign a blank check. Anything you'd like them, realize about your comrades in arms or veterans? Anything?
I don't know whether you're asking about like my hand-to-hand combat or the landing or...
Oh no, I'm talking about just in general about veterans like yourself, Truett. Is there anything that you wanted the general public to know about, wanted people to know about veterans? Anything in general about how veterans really are? I mean...
Well, all the veterans I knew were great people. I'm sure there were some that were not, but I didn't know that many because I was in college and there weren't that many.
Uh-huh.
Well, I didn't get that close to them. There were quite a few there.
Yeah, yeah.
But I was too busy studying
Yes, sir.
civil engineering.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, with that, Truett, Bill and myself would like to really thank you so much for giving us a very, very interesting story of your service and your sacrifice. I mean, if I can speak for Bill, we really thank you so much for your service. I mean, we wouldn't be here right now if it wasn't for people like you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I appreciate that, don't.
Okay. Thank you.